also, how will people that are employed, they now are under their employer's health benefit, and I've read that 7 million people are going to lose their current coverage. That's what I've read. I don't know how accurate that is.
Well, that's a guess
Yeah.
of employers that just give up. But there are two other things that are here. In the fast food industry, how have they complied with the law? Quite simply, they don't allow any employee to get more than 20 hours. Okay? So people who are getting 35 to 40 hours and didn't have medical insurance now have had their wages cut in half. And still no medical insurance. Now, is the payroll dollars the same? Yes. But now we've got twice as many people underemployed. They get a paycheck, but they're underemployed. And nobody's talking about them. And that's, I think, a real shame in all of this. Because the government has forced these. The other thing, an economic consequence not being measured, is if you are a small employer of 40, 45 people, and you are having a growth spurt, the majority of my clients in that category are saying, I'm not hiring any more people. I'll hire some temps, maybe. I'll give my employees some overtime, maybe. But I'm not going to get close to 50. Is that good for the economy to deny good people a good job?
Well, you're stifling growth.
Absolutely. That's another consequence of this. So we're impoverishing some workers and we're denying growth to the others in the name of whatever it is we're trying to accomplish here.
How about dependents of people that you've been talking about, these people who are insured, they're covered under their employer's program? Are they going to be affected in any way? Is it going to be different for them than it was before?
Two ways that they're going to be affected. One, the most obvious would be is if their employer no longer offers coverage because of the fear of the cost of this. And obviously they're put into a potentially worse situation where they're no longer being subsidized to some extent by their employer. And Larry sees this as well as I, although probably dependent coverage has been less subsidized over the last few years just due to the increased cost of premiums. There's still a lot of employers that do help their families of their employees purchase insurance. One of the probably unforeseen or misunderstood areas is that under the new law with the safe harbor, if an individual if the coverage is available and affordable to an individual, just himself, if an employer makes that coverage affordable to the employee, the dependents by default is affordable to them, although technically it may not be based on their family income. So if an employer offers coverage to the employee and it's affordable for them to purchase individual coverage for themselves, then it becomes affordable to everybody in the family, and what that is going to preclude those dependents from doing is going to this exchange or marketplace to purchase insurance with a potential subsidy. So and the administration tried to get involved and frankly fix that after the fact, but there was just no way legally they could do it, which means it was pretty ironclad because as we've seen, they've walked that fine line in that area many times. But so unfortunately, some of the family members and dependents are really going to be harmed by this because they would have normally been eligible for a subsidy, but by an employer offering it, they're not. Well, that goes back to what Larry said earlier. That's another reason a small employer may just say, why are we offering it?
Let me ask you about the exchanges. We've heard so much about them. Those, you call that a marketplace, and this is basic.
No, don't do that to him. Okay. He didn't call it a marketplace.
That's
they
right.
call it a marketplace.
The administration calls it a marketplace.
I see.
Okay.
Talk about the exchanges and how they're not a marketplace.
There you go.
And what they are.
Yeah. The early indications that we have from the companies that have told us they're going to participate in the marketplace, obviously they're being regulated to the point of what kind of plans they can offer. They have to fit these very tight corridors of how much coverage they provide. And this is where you may have heard of these metallic levels where you're going to buy a platinum, gold, silver, or bronze plan. So those will be the options you have. It's allowing for very little innovation in plan design from the employers. And then also what you're seeing with the exchanges is the companies are trying to figure out ways, I think, to really make these exchange plans inexpensive and, frankly, not particularly attractive. And one way they can still do that legally within the confines of the law is restrict the networks. So it may be where you can get an affordable plan through the exchange with the help of a subsidy if you're a lower income worker, but who's going to take it? A health plan isn't very helpful if no one accepts it.
Now, you talked about platinum, gold, silver, etc. If you go, and these are insurance companies that we know and love all along. I mean, these are not something that's been created for this. These are the insurance companies we're familiar with. Will they be offering different plans, or are they required to offer certain plans and they're all going to be the same, or how's that going to fall?
They can offer different plans as long as they actuarially are the same within about 4 points. So in other words, if United Healthcare offers a plan that covers 90% of all claims, and Blue Cross Blue Shield offers a plan that supposedly covers 90% of all claims, they won't be identical, but they'll be close enough per the new law to say they're both platinum plans.
Okay, so there's going to be little difference among the plans that you can get at each of these various levels.
Correct. You shouldn't see a whole lot, and that's the point of it, is that there may be a slightly different deductible or $5 difference in copay, but they're going to cover essentially the same amount of claims that the other plan would.
So let me ask this to you, Larry. The insurance companies, where do they come down on this? I mean, I can't imagine they're blown sideways with Obamacare in general. Is this going to put them out of business, or what's going to happen in 15 years in terms of these various insurance companies?
Well, I don't have any major insurance companies as clients, so I'm not privy to what they're thinking. Now, obviously, they're going to have to react to this or go out of business. Those are their choices. And it appears that they're trying to react.
I've read that one of the motives of this whole idea was to have a single payer system at some point in time, 10, 15, 20, whatever it is, years down the road.
You mean one as effective as Champus that takes care of our veterans, that's run by the federal government, as effective as that one? I hope my sarcasm is sure.
Brian, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that, ultimate goal, I don't think anybody that saw the whole political, aspects of this play out, didn't think that was the plan initially. It was obvious that politically it couldn't get done. So they've come up with another system, as which we see the effects of it now, or the attendant effects. However, what you're having is a situation, if you boil it down to very, very simple terms, you have insurance companies now, per the new regulations, that have no limit on their exposure. In other words, when they sell a policy, there is no limit on how much money they can pay on that individual policy. And they have thousands, in some cases millions of subscribers or eligibles that are purchasing these plans, that they have unlimited exposure, yet per the new medical loss ratio restrictions, they have to pay out 80 or 85 cents of every dollar in claims, depending on what size group they're selling insurance to. So as you can see, you're going to be in a business where realistically your profit margin will be 1%, 2%, 3%, and your exposure is unlimited. Yeah. So long term, how many people want to, how much capital is going to flow to that type of business?
I hear you. Well, Larry said you have two choices, adjust or go out of business. It sounds like you really only have one choice.
Well, first of all, these are, for the most part, pretty wise people. And they might be forced to remake themselves. And they're buying time to remake themselves, exiting the healthcare insurance business to go into another.
I say.
Another business.
I say. Talk about the cost of healthcare. We know what's happened to premiums over the last several years. What's going to happen going forward? And again, realizing that we're not only policyholders, we're taxpayers, and I understand there's been 18 new tax hikes associated with Obamacare. So we're paying premiums, we're paying taxes.
We're going to let Brian talk about premium, but let's talk about human nature. Now, I'm the proud father of 4 children. And very quickly in raising the 4 children, I discovered there was absolutely no limit to free. Anything that was free, my kids wanted all of it. Okay? And everybody else is the same way. So if there's no consequences to the use of your insurance policy, is demand going to go up? Some of it artificially. The answer is yes. Does that cost money? Yes. You know, right now when people have their deductible paid for the year, do they do procedures that really needed to be done but they had postponed for years? Sure. Okay, why? People act in their own self-interest. Okay, but there are no checks and balances now. It's just all one way. And that won't be able to survive very long.
Right?
Yeah, as far as the premiums are concerned, and Larry alluded to it earlier, you're going to take the current playing field, raise it up 18% to start with, and then you're going to start factoring in the inequities of the system, which is the young, healthy individual now can only pay 1/3 the premium of the oldest, sickest person in the company's insurance block, which normally was more of a 6 or 7 to 1 spread. So you start taking these artificial restrictions, and what you're going to see, your premiums will rise inappropriately or unproportionately for younger individuals. And even with the 18% increase just in general, you'll see some prices fall for the older, sicker group. But I would say, from what I've seen, it's going to be the 80-20 rule. 80% will end up as bad or worse off than currently, and maybe 20% will end up the same or better.
I see. This is not an encouraging conversation, is it?
Well, if you found any encouragement in the conversation, we've made a mistake.
The problems that we had with health care up until this point in time, we had lots of people who had no insurance. They would show up at the emergency room and get treated for whatever it was. And those costs would be borne by basically insurance or people that were covered under insurance policies. How is that going to change now? I mean, is this going to be much different?
Well, let's look at a couple of things. Again, historical perspective helps. Okay, Dr. Don Thomas practices here in Dalton. He and I had supper together not too long ago. And in 1969, he charged $35 to deliver a baby. Okay, where are we now? Okay, and what we've done with, there used to be just Blue Cross hospital insurance, and then we added Blue Shield for doctors. Okay, and what we've done is, under the guise of making it more affordable, okay, we've turned health care into not something you pay for, but as to this right. Okay, just right now under the poverty line, for example, you're supposed to be able to afford a widescreen television. That's now evidently part of your economic right. Okay, and so whether you could pay or not pay, you went to the hospital and you demanded absolutely the finest in medical care because it was your right. Well, now we're getting ready to take it to yet another level, a higher level of right. The truth of the matter is we can't afford it. Right now, from a doctor's perspective, if you're accepting Medicaid, you get 70% of your overhead. Nothing to pay the doctor. So every Medicaid patient that walks through the door, the doctor is paying 30% to see the doctor, to see that patient. And for Social Security, it's 90%. and the doctor's not getting paid anything. So if you have only a Medicaid, all you're doing is losing money and you're not getting paid. So what's the end game? Okay, if we've got the government setting prices that the medical providers can't cover the costs, how many people are going to go into that business? So the government takes over the medical care system because it doesn't care whether or not how much money it loses, and on and on and on. Now the problem with that to begin with is right now for every dollar of tax that we take in, we're spending $1.50. So are we raising it to 2 or 3? Where does the madness stop? Evidently not with medical care. We'll go back to the madness.